Good morning, everyone. We're going to wait a couple of minutes for people to for the numbers to settle. For those of you who are still joining or just joining, we're going to wait another minute or so for the numbers to settle. Sorry, everybody. Every time I'm about to start and the number is settled, it then jumps up again. So just another minute. Okay, it looks good. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for our Electric Bicycle Incentives Project Work Group. My name is Aria Berliner, and I am the staff lead over the Electric Bicycle Incentives Project. I will be joined today by Sam Greger, manager over the Clean Mobility Options Project. Before we get started, I want to go over some logistics for today's discussion. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. We anticipate a copy of the recording will be made on the Low Carbon Transportation Investments and Air Quality Improvement Program meetings and workshops webpage in approximately 2 weeks. The link will be posted in the chat. Meetings for today's work group are available on the same webpage, and a link to these materials has been dropped into the Zoom chat. Additionally, today's meeting is being translated live in Spanish. In a little bit, you will be able to access the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen. For Spanish speakers, please join the Spanish channel, and the meeting will be translated into Spanish. Please be mindful when speaking so that the interpreters can translate what you're saying. You do not need to speak super slow, but we ask that you do not speak super fast. We will not be using the Q&A box today, and that feature has been disabled. We will be leveraging Zoom's raised hand feature to facilitate comments and questions. Please remember to state your name and affiliation when making a comment or asking a question. If there are Zoom disruptions for any reason, including malicious intent, we will immediately end today's meeting and send out another notice to reschedule. And lastly, we are unable to allow anonymous meeting participants for security reasons. Please make sure your name is clear on the Zoom platform. If you have called in, we will adjust your phone number and call on you if you raise your hand based on the last 4 digits of your number. Mark?
Thank you, Aria. Muy buenos días a todos que nos acompañan y desean escuchar el programa en español. Queremos dejarles saber que tienen la opción para hacerlo hoy. Lo que tiene que hacer en breve, verá el icono con un globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla que dice Interpretation o interpretación. De ahí seleccione su idioma Spanish o español y podrá escuchar todo el programa en español. And we'd like to remind anybody listening in English, if there happens to be any comments or questions given in Spanish, please select the globe icon at the bottom of your screen that says interpretation. Select your language English, and you'll then be able to hear a live rendering of that comment into English. Thank you, Aria. Back to you.
Thanks, Mark. I've started the interpretation. Now we'll move on to the agenda. Today's agenda is as follows. First, we're going to give some background on the project. Then we will talk about the more finalized detail of the program, income limits and eligible retailers. We'll then bring forward suggestions about eligible e-bikes, as well as the work we've been doing on incentives. After each topic, we will have a focused discussion. After we've finished discussing those topics, I'll provide a brief timeline. I'll then close with next steps. Now I'd like to provide some background for this project. The Electric Bicycle Incentives Project was established by CARB in November 2021. We have held 3 work groups on solicitation development and 4 on program implementation so far. We launched the solicitation for an administrator in April 2022 and announced the winner in August. The grant has been signed and Pedal Ahead began work on December 1st, 2022. We had been planning for the consumer-facing program to launch in the first quarter of 2023. However, due to delays in signing the grant agreement and needing a system for the application and income verification, it's very likely that the launch date will most likely be Q2. I'm providing a 2022 federal poverty limit table in this presentation because I know a lot of people have been asking for one. This is available on the slides posted to our website for this work group. Please note that these figures are updated annually. Now I'd like to discuss some program parameters. Please note that these were discussed and finalized at the November 30th, 2022 work group. This program will implement a hybrid needs-based approach. Applications will be accepted on a first-come, first-served basis. However, funds will automatically be reserved for applicants that either live in a disadvantaged community or low-income community, as defined by Cal EnviroScreen 4.0, or if they have an income of at most 225% of a federal poverty level. These applicants will also have their applications processed sooner. Applicants who do not meet one of those criteria may experience longer wait times for applications to be processed. The priority criteria is as follows. Applicants that either live in a disadvantaged community or low-income community, as defined by Cal EnviroScreen 4.0, or have an income of at most 225% of the federal poverty limit, meaning that an income in a 4-person household is about $62,000. Or they participate in one or more of the following assistance programs on the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project's categorical eligibility list, such as CalWORKS or TANF, Section 8 for very low and extremely low income classifications, Medicaid, among others. Based on the discussion at the September 28th, 2020 work group, as well as changes in income limits approved by our board on November 17th, 2022, Staff has set the eligible income limit for this program at 300% of the federal poverty limit. This means in 2022, for a family of 4 to be eligible to receive an e-bike incentive, their income would have to be $83,250 or less. For an individual, that number is about $40,770. CARB is making a significant effort to ensure these projects are equitable. One of the ways we are doing that is setting an income limit. We understand the supply chain, we understand the chain supply struggles that e-bike manufacturers and most industries have experienced throughout the pandemic. In one of the first work groups for this project, we discussed limiting retailer participation to only local bike shops, but have heard from a lot of you that we should include online e-bike retailers. As a result, staff has proposed and is making this part of the program that we work with both local bike shops and online e-bike retailers with a physical presence in California. By physical presence, we mean that there is either a physical shop, that their manufacturing is done in California, or that they have their corporate office in California. Based on comments and feedback from the September 28th, 2022 work group, and sticking with the same message that we had in the November 30th, 2022 work group, we are continuing to include all e-bike classes in this program. Now I'd like to discuss some new policy considerations. Online e-retailers will have to apply to have their bikes be eligible for the program. The exception is for e-bikes sold through local bike shops that have applied to be part of the program. For instance, if a bike shop in a California city is an eligible bike shop in the program, the e-bikes they sell will be eligible for the incentive. An online retailer would have to apply to have their e-bikes eligible to be incentivized through the program. We are trying to make these requirements as seamless as possible. All electric bicycles incentivized through this program will have to come equipped with back and front lights as standard. They will also have to be assembled either by the retailer or at the retailer's expense when delivered to the customer. Electric bicycles will have to have a manufacturer provided 1-year warranty on the electrical components. I'd like to now open this up for questions and comments. Bianca?
Good morning. My name is Bianca. I'm going to be helping with the raised hands. When I call your name, I'll unmute I'll unmute the microphone from my side, and then you can unmute yourself as well. Looks like we have 3 raised hands right now. I'm going to go with the first one. Ruben Ponce, you may unmute yourself and speak when you're ready.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm that for e-bike dealers, they have to apply to be a part of the program.
What do you mean by e-bike dealers?
So I work for a company that actually is going to be selling the e-bikes. So I just wanted to confirm, do we have to actually apply to be part of that this incentive program?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Awesome. Next speaker, Deborah Barragan. Deborah, your line is unmuted.
Sorry, I did not have a question.
That's all right. Next person is Guillermo Elenes. Your line is unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask if there was any guidance, federal lithium or legislation they passed within North America?
Guillermo, I'm sorry to
You
interrupt
wanna talk
you.
about whether they can give.
But you are cutting in and out, and I'm only catching every 5 words.
Oh. Si va a haber incentivos para que las bicicletas sean hechas en Norteamérica, México, Canadá y Estados Unidos. Can you ask that? Que si va a poder haber incentivos para que la fabricación de los componentes eléctricos sean en México, Canadá y Estados Unidos, como se hace a nivel federal.
Thank you for your question. Amy, can everyone hear me? Okay. So thank you for your question. That's not actually something we've really discussed yet. And I don't know if that'll be something that we necessarily consider, because as a state program, we're not we're not going to be following the federal guidelines, at least in terms of the manufacturing. This is a state incentive program. So this isn't something we've discussed. But thank you for your question, and it is something that we will discuss internally and bring back to a future work group.
Thank you, Guillermo. The next raised hand is Ron Brazel. Ron, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to comment again on the classifications of the e-bikes, and that while I'm happy that the class 3 were included, but on the broader spectrum, I think that's really a mistake, that because of the limited amount of infrastructure, costs, I think, will additionally go up with class 3 bicycles, and but primarily for safety. With a lot of these people buying the bikes, a lot of them may not be as familiar with bicycles, and getting on a higher speed bicycle is just plain simple a safety issue. And the second question, no response needed on that, but on the other part, I wanted to ask about the assembly of the, you said that it was be required by the retailer at the retailer's expense. If a participant wanted to do their own assembly, is there accommodations for that, or a way to save state's funds by allowing the participant to do his own assembly?
That's something that we can definitely discuss. It's not something that, we want to make sure that these bikes are not just being delivered to the consumer in boxes, because most consumers are not going to be able to assemble them. So that's something I think that we can do on a case-by-case basis. But in general, we're expecting that we are going to require that the bikes come assembled or are assembled at the cost of the manufacturer or retailer.
Or just, have that option for assembly at the cost would be what I would recommend anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to give everyone a heads up. We have 25 raised hands. So know that it might be a wait. But we're gonna get to all the raised hands. Thanks, B. Next raised hand.
Sure. Saul Lycan, I'm opening up your line.
Hi, my name is Saul Lakin. I am here representing Specialized Bicycle Components. We're based in Morgan Hill, California. We're excited when we have the opportunity to apply to be part of this program and to help our retailers do the same thing. I did have one comment/question and then one comment. My comment/question is that it has to do with the income eligibility requirements. I am confused and concerned that the income eligibility for the electric bicycle program is significantly lower than the CVRP program. I think it sends the wrong message that the state is more interested in keeping people in cars, even if they are electric, than exploring alternative forms of transportation. So I want to urge the car board to match those income eligibility requirements. We're all about equity. I think that's a great goal, but there should also be equity between those two programs. The comment I have about is also about the assembly. I just want to say this is not unique to my company that I'm representing, and most of the vast majority of our bicycles are assembled by a local retailer. However, I just want to say I think putting this as a requirement in there is going to greatly reduce the number of other companies who want to apply to be part of the program. These online sellers make a lot of investment to make it easy for people to assemble the bikes at home. Even though they come in a box, they're actually pretty close to fully assembled out of the box, and they have all kinds of great videos and documentation about how to assemble the bike, and instead of paying a retailer to assemble it. And so I think if you leave this requirement in, the number of companies that apply to be part of the program is going to be far lower than if you let the consumer assemble the bike, excuse me. Thank you.
Thanks, Saul, for your comments. As for the question and the comment about CVRP, the e-bike incentive actually does align with the increased rebate eligibility requirement for CVRP, as well as Clean Cars for All and the financing assistance for low-income consumers. This is an equity program, and we want to make sure that our eligibility requirements align with the vehicle purchase incentive programs. So thank you.
Okay, because what I'm seeing on the website, and maybe just hasn't been updated, is that for a household size of 4 for CVRP, household income must be less than $111,000. And on this program, in your chart, it had it at $83,250. That's almost a $30,000 difference in income, and that was concerning.
My apologies. CVRP is staying at 400% of the federal poverty limit, which is $111,000. But the other vehicle purchase incentive programs, Clean Cars for All and financing assistance, have eligibility at 300% FPL.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next person in line is Don DiConstanzo. I've opened up your line. Don?
Here I am. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so thank you for including me in this. I've got 2 very serious concerns about this program from everything I know about it, and they are related to safety. There are 2 pressing concerns now in the marketplace, and it has to do with the battery safety and also rider safety. And what programs at all are installed that whoever sells these bikes has any obligation to provide maintenance ongoing basis. A lot of these bikes, after 30 days, the brakes need to be adjusted. They may not stop well enough. And we've seen other programs like this in other parts of the country where online retailers parachute in, they open up a temporary location, they milk the program, and then they leave. What's being done to prevent that? And the last part of the question is, if there's an online retailer that says I have a presence in San Diego and they sell a bike in Sacramento, how is that really work for a physical presence? Because the person in Sacramento clearly isn't going to go to San Diego to pick up the bike or get it serviced.
Thank you for your questions and concerns. I don't necessarily have a great answer for you, at least for the person who buys a bike in Sacramento, but the bike shop is in San Diego. I am hoping that this program will have a safety component. That's not something that we've really been focused on just as of yet, but it will have a safety component. And we do hope that people who are buying their bikes from online retailers are understanding the service requirements needed for these bikes. But yeah.
Okay, well, that's like not really answering the question. Safety is the big issue. Houses are burning down. There was one in Huntington Beach last week. Apartment caught fire because the batteries are unsafe, and these online retailers have some of them aren't even based here. They're based in China, and there's no way you can sue them or go after them. And then other companies parachute in here and milk. I'm a California taxpayer. I pay taxes in California. My company's in California. I have 27 stores in California. We all pay taxes. And you guys seem to be allowing online retailers from Timbuktu to parachute in here, sell their bikes, and then leave. And I think you're doing a disservice to the people who are in the program, because then they'll have a worthless piece of a worthless bike if it can't get serviced after the sale. So I think you've kind of missed that as a critical element to the success of the program on an ongoing basis.
So this is the last thing I'll say on this, because I don't want to take away time from other callers. But part of the reason we're requiring this physical presence in California is so that they can't just parachute in and then be part of the program and then leave.
But then you've got to have a copy of their lease that they're there for 2 or 3 years or something, not a 3-month lease or a 4-month lease, because that's what happened in other markets. We saw it happen.
Okay, I'm happy to take this conversation offline, but and please feel free to reach out to me by email. Bianca will provide my email in the chat after she calls on the next caller. But
thank you
so much for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. The next person in line is Courtney Copeland. I've opened up your line, Courtney.
Hi there. Thank you. I am with with GoBiz, and so often we're an early line of contact for e-bike manufacturers. And I'm wondering how I can best point them to information, say if they are interested in applying, if they need to learn about requirements for this program, where I can be directing them, and if any of that is live at this time.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney, for your question. I would recommend they reach out to our grantee, Pedal Ahead. There is no, we don't have a live website yet, and I know that that is something that they are working on, but I would just ask them to stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have a website live some point soon so that manufacturers and retailers can reach out to the grantee.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. The next hand is Eris Weaver. Eris, I've opened your line.
Thank you. Eris Weaver, I'm the Executive Director of the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, and our local power company, Sonoma Clean Power, offered an e-bike incentive program, and we ran safety classes for the participants in that program. So I have a couple comments about our experiences with that, as well as then some questions for your program. I am kind of in agreement with the previous caller who was concerned about including this with making class 3 e-bikes eligible for this. And I'm sometimes a little iffy about class 2. One of the things we saw in our classes was that participants in our program, which was similarly an equity-based program, most of the people were older, some had physical limitations. Most had not ridden a bicycle in a very long time. And there were some challenges with folks, especially with class 2 with throttles or with the excessive speed, getting a handle on handling the bike. So I'm much leaning towards preferring that folks just do the class 1. In terms of the program, this may be available somewhere and I'm just unaware of it, is I don't have a sense of the scale of the program, how much money or how many individuals will be served, and that would be interesting to know. Next question, when you say that it will prioritize folks who either live in a community of concern or who have a specific income level, what level of granularity are you using in your determination of living in a community of concern? Citywide, countywide, the precinct level? I mean, because there's jurisdictions with a great variety, and so I'm just trying to get a sense of that, and if there will be anything in that priority levels around sort of regional in different parts of the state. So I think that kind of covered all of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eris. So we're sort of jumping the gun in terms of how many incentives will be available statewide. So this is a statewide program, and if this is a statewide program, and if everyone who applies is gets a cargo bike, lives in a disadvantaged community, or is under 225% of the federal poverty limit, they will be eligible for up to $2,000 for the e-bike. And that means with the $10 million that we have for this grant, that is roughly 3,750 incentives. As for the DAC, or low income classification, that's defined by Cal EnviroScreen. I know that our sister programs, like Clean Cars for All, do it at the zip code. Some programs do it at the zip code level, others will do it at the census tract level. We haven't really decided that yet, but I expect it will be either at the census tract level or the zip code level that community is defined as a disadvantaged community. I think I covered all of your questions.
I remember one last question that I forgot to ask, and that is in terms of, discussing with my local shops and sharing information with them, will retailers who have multiple locations, like say Trek, which has stores all over the county, all over the state, will they have to each location apply to participate, or can the sort of corporate entity apply on behalf of all of them?
That's not something we've figured out just yet. So stay tuned, because that we'll have an answer for you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next raised hand is Pete Cannon.
Good morning. This is Piet Cannon from Ecology Action. My question was about the, restrictions to the quality of electric bikes. I mean, previous speakers have talked about, low quality e-bikes, the batteries catching fire, and that's a big issue. So, I mean, some other programs that do rebates on a regional level, they like to kind of make sure it's a quality bike. They go and they set a maximum, a floor for like the bike has to be retail for at least $800, so you don't get cheap bikes that are not very durable, that only last a couple of months, and then they are prone to like the person said, the mechanics of the bike not working that well, or the battery catching fire. So I just wanted to know what CARB's thinking in that vein. Thank you.
Thanks, Piet. So that is something that we have discussed at prior work groups. I think honestly, I think that's a great idea, having that floor. I am a little bit concerned if some manufacturers, quality manufacturers, come in and try to, I guess, beat that floor, if you will. And there's also concerns about the requirements, like the eligibility requirements for the bikes being incredibly complicated. So we're trying to make this balancing act. We're trying to have this balancing act where, we make it easy for the consumer, easy for the manufacturer and the retailer, while still delivering a quality product. And so we're going to continue having that conversation, because this is something we've talked about before, and it's not something that we're forgetting about now. It's just we're trying to continue moving this program forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think to err on the side of quality is really important, in terms of you might be getting somebody an inexpensive product in the beginning, but it's not going to serve them over any extended period of time. And then I think, also the way just having a price cutoff, it does seem like could be a little bit arbitrary, but it's simple, it's straightforward. You don't want to make your program too complicated, because you're dealing with a statewide program. So those are some things that I would recommend. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next person With the raised hand is Lucinda Young. Lucinda, I've opened your line.
Yes, I had a couple questions, and fortunately, one of them has already been answered by a previous question. So I'm a consumer. Very excited about this program. I've been wanting an e-bike, but just because of the cost, haven't been able to do that yet. And I wanted to, if you could go over briefly what the application process for the rebate will be look like for consumers. And I do want to stress that I think it's really important that the rebate process be as simple as possible, especially I think with, you know, low income or people in disadvantaged communities. If there are a lot of hurdles, as there are to many government rebates, it's going to really discourage people who otherwise would take advantage of the program. And also, I'm assuming that after the purchase, after the consumer makes the purchase, we would apply for the rebate. You know, what's the projected time to get the funds back? You know, this is going to be months down the line. Again, that is a hurdle for many people if there's going to be a long period of time between the purchase when you have to, you know, buy it retail and getting the rebate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lucinda. And those are some great questions. I do want to clarify, this is a point of sale incentive. So the only waiting an applicant will have to do, other than, you know, trying to figure out what bike they want, is waiting to hear back from the project administrator on whether or not they were approved for the incentive, because this will be a point of purchase incentive. You will get the money when you go to buy the bike. As for the application process, we're still trying to figure out the program parameters. So we haven't really dove into the specifics around the application, but I would expect that we have an online application of sorts and people provide their information, and it's reviewed by the grantee, it's reviewed by the project administrator, and then if the person meets all of the eligibility requirements, they would be approved. We hope to have that approval process within 2 weeks, 2 weeks to a month, but depending on how many applications the grantee gets at one time, I can't guarantee anything.
Thank you very much. The next person in line is Brian Lee Ellens. Brian, I'm opening your line.
Hello.
Hi, Brinley.
Hi. Quick question. So, I believe it may have already been answered, but I do have a follow-up. So I represent a San Diego County we are a bike shop here in San Diego County up in Carlsbad, Happy E-Bikes. And again, the question, I believe we fit all of the requirements, the application process, and timeline for that application. When will that open up?
So we are aiming to launch it sometime in Q2.
Okay. And then a follow-up, we also have a full service department here. So just wondering if there's going to be any like preferred service networks. We do any kind of maintenance along with assembly. So just wondering if you're going to have an application maybe for people to help, service the bikes.
I'm sure that'll be something we talk about in the future, but as of right now, we don't know.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Next person in line would be Nick Klassen. Mick, you can unmute yourself when you're ready.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to comment to this work group. And I appreciate the complexity of this effort. So I appreciate the work that y'all are doing. I have two comments I don't need an immediate response on, but first off, I do hope that the group can find a way to exclude mountain bikes from this program, which won't achieve program objectives and may actually be responsible for some problems that will need to be addressed by society in the future. And secondly, I echo the comments others have made about concerns about safety. And there was a New York Times article about many lithium-ion battery fires in New York City on November 14th. And one of the maybe simple solutions that was impliedly recommended in that article was just requiring that the batteries and their chargers be certified by the Underwriter Laboratories, or UL listed. So I just suggest that the folks on the work group and in your resources, consider a way to just have a simple specification that might, help ensure safety. Thank you again for this opportunity to comment.
Thanks, Mick.
All right, the next person would be Nick Wood. Nick, I've opened your line.
Hi, I'm here representing Zvolt e-bikes. We are a primarily online retailer based in Oregon, but we do have some dealers coming online in California. So a couple questions. First off, I recall seeing someplace previously that there was a potential requirement for manufacturers to apply in order to have Class 3 e-bikes considered as eligible. Is that still the case?
So Class 3 e-bikes are eligible. The requirement would be that e-bike retailers and manufacturers would have to apply to be able to participate in the program to sell their e-bikes. But it's not specific to Class 3. It's the same requirements for Class 1 as it would be for Class 3.
Okay, and so that kind of gets to my follow-on. I guess I'm still a little bit confused. So in our specific case, as an online retailer with a dealer in the state, both the dealer and us as the manufacturer are going to be required to apply.
I believe so, but I don't know. It was a similar question about Trek.
Yeah.
I can't give you a good answer right now.
Okay, we'll continue to track it.
Thank you.
One other question about dealers is, will there be a publicly accessible list of participating dealers?
Yes, so I can pretty much say without hesitation that when someone applies and is approved for this incentive, they will receive a list of eligible retailers and bike shops throughout the state.
Okay. And then finally, just one comment on the safety front from an industry perspective is we're very conscientious in sourcing, but like most of the rest of the industry, our products are not currently UL certified. UL certification, at the moment, the Bosch drive systems are the only one that have that certification. So this is more for everybody else listening in. Recognize that that's probably the direction that the industry is moving, and the CPSC has encouraged us to do so. But for the next few years, that UL certification is probably not going to be a blanket, but it's also not a, I guess it's not the sole mark of quality. There are other testing standards that are applicable, and there's other quality standards that are applicable to determining whether or not your e-bike is safe. So, I think the price floor that was mentioned by an earlier caller is an effective tool if CARB chooses to encourage some sort of blanket safety standard. You know, and I think that that could be modified in a few years as certification either via UL or another body becomes more standardized across the industry. And we're talking, you know, products at retail from $1,500 up to $15,000 that are not UL certified, but are plenty safe according to other standards and sourcing practices. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
Okay,
Bianca, just really quick, I want to give everyone an update. We have 17 more raised hands.
Yep. Okay, our next person would be Richard Wittenberg. Richard, I've opened your line.
Good morning, everyone. Couple of questions / comments. First question is, what, in your best estimation, is the target number of retailers you're looking for to participate in the program?
I don't have a good number, as many as possible. I
Okay, so
don't have a good number.
So it's clearly it's the more the merrier, right?
The more the merrier with, you know, as long as they're selling quality e-bikes that are serviceable and, you know.
Understood.
Yeah.
So then the next question, and it's more of a request, is, you know, direct to consumer e-bike brands are absolutely a staple of the industry, and we have to acknowledge that fact. But it would be appreciated that if you have an assembly requirement for the retailer, that anybody selling direct to consumer also has that same requirement, that you don't disadvantage the local brick and mortar retailer who is forced to assemble a bike at a cost, opposed to a direct to consumer brand who can ship directly to the consumer's house and not have to pay that cost.
We will 100% have that requirement for direct to consumer retailers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you would do is you would validate the e-bike, but it would be understood that the redemption point would have to perform the assembly. Is that the methodology you're looking at?
Yes, but I also understand that there are some direct to consumer retailers that have mobile service shops and mobile build shops, if you will. And so we would expect that those, you know, in those circumstances, the e-bikes would be assembled by one of their mobile service shops within a certain, you know, maybe within a week or so of the consumer receiving the box. But that would be at the cost to the direct to consumer retailer.
To the brand. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other comment is about, and it touches on what the last caller was commenting on about certifications. There are multiple certification levels, one for an entire e-bike and then other for parts of the e-bike, most notably the batteries and the chargers. I would strongly request that all chargers meet California standards, which are unique and distinct from others, and also that the batteries that are used on the bikes are UL listed batteries. That's not nearly as exclusive as the entire bike, which the previous caller mentioned was only guaranteed by Bosch. But you know, it's very easy to get batteries that are, you know, UL listed, and I would strongly encourage the group to make that a requirement for qualification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Our next raised hand will be Ellen Williams.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thanks so much. So yeah, this has been mentioned a few times, so I'll keep it short. But on the assembly requirements, so the company that I'm representing, we have a few stores in California and mobile service, plus working with, you know, local bike shops to get assembly done. However, standardly for most bike companies, there is kind of a fee if that is the choice the customer decides to go with. And there might be some customers who are in areas where they don't live close to these shops in order to get the assembly. However, with the bikes that do get delivered that need partial assembly, it's usually just smaller components like the kickstand or mounting the handlebars onto it, just because it can't really be boxed up and shipped without those components, being attached to it without causing damage. So I'm just wondering if, as a suggestion, maybe looking into what assembly requirements we're looking for, just because I think this could close off a lot of areas and options for like delivering bikes if customers are wanting that.
Thanks, Ellen. What company do you represent?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm with Rad Power Bikes.
Okay. Thank you. As of right now, we're fairly strict. I think we're gonna hold firm on the assembly requirement, and we can definitely provide more clarification in future work groups on what we mean by assembled.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, our next raised hand will be Jonathan Bradbury. Jonathan?
Jonathan, you'll need to unmute on your end.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering about the how are you going to determine who gets the vouchers first? Is there going to be like a lottery, or is there going to be a priority of who gets first, or?
So applications will be received on will be accepted on a first come first served basis. However, they will be reviewed based on a priority. So we will be, or the grantee will be reviewing applications from people who live in a disadvantaged or low income community, or who have a gross income of under 225% of the federal poverty limit, or who participate in certain categorical eligibility programs such as CalWORKs or TANF, or Section 8 very low or extremely low housing. Programs like that are Medicaid. And
yeah,
then
that's me.
and then the other applications for people who don't meet those certain criteria will be processed and reviewed after.
How will we know where to go and when to go?
What do you
Well,
mean?
for that, because it's not going to be a lottery. But like you say, like for Section 8 and for we will have priority. How will we know where to go and when to go for because for I'm in Southern California, and in Santa Ana, and how we know when it's going to be open or when we can apply.
We will be sending out a notice via our Gov delivery system, and the link to subscribe to that listserv is located at the end of the slides, is located on the last slide. I also expect, although I can't confirm this, I also expect that there are bicycle advocacy groups that will announce the launch as soon as we've sent out that notice. So if you're on our listserv, if you're on other listservs, depending on how you heard about this meeting, I expect that one of those places you will hear about when the program opens.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Our next raised hand will be Ellen Williams, right? Or Ellen?
I think we already heard from Ellen.
Yeah. Okay, I wasn't sure. If I forgot to lower her hand. Okay, sorry, Ellen. Jean Severinghouse, that's our next raised hand. Jean, you can unmute your line when you're ready.
Yes, hi. I have had an e-bike for 8 years, which I was given by a grant and would not have been able to even afford a small amount for it. So I'm very appreciative. I had to go through several bikes before I found one that didn't break down right away. And I finally got one from REI, and I've been extraordinarily grateful that I got it from a brick and mortar, because service is critical. The brakes, it's a heavy bike, and the brakes do need attention much more rapidly than other bikes. So I am supportive of all these criteria you've given here, because I think that they start to support that issue of the service needs of these bikes and the quality needs. The only question I have on the list, I like them because they're very clear to the manufacturers. They're very clear to everybody. The only question I have is, why would the 1-year warranty only be on the electrical components? And I think that somehow we need to address the brakes issue. So, you know, them have to have the 1-year warranty on the brakes, for example, as well, or getting the brakes serviced, because even if they're good brakes, they need to be serviced within that year, probably multiple times. So somehow, if you can amend that last bullet point to make it a more broad warranty, I think it would be great. Anyway, these are terrific. They really are answering a lot of the questions that we've been discussing, and thank you.
Thanks, Jean. And that's something we'll definitely take into consideration.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker will be Shepard Ginsburg.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm a retailer. I've been in the e-bike business for 11 years now, and solely e-bikes. I was an e-bike rider before and realized that there was a need for retailers which only did e-bikes, because, to be honest, most of the standard bike dealers didn't have a clue as to how to service them at all. And so I wanted to, number one, say, yes, you are absolutely right in requiring them to be assembled. I constantly see bikes assembled by customers, and they are dangerous. They may do their best. A lot of these adjustments that come from the factory, and the ones that are supposedly pre-assembled, and there's only all you have to do is put on a kickstand, whatever. It's just not so, because most of the ones coming from the factory are poorly adjusted. I generally have to go over them, and there's almost never more work that really should be done properly. So please, yes, stick with that requirement. The class of bikes, some people have been saying that class 3 is too dangerous. I don't believe that's true at all. I think the customers, when they ride bikes, and of course they're going to want to test whatever they're going to purchase, they know their limitations right away. And I think that including all classes makes sense, because if someone's using a bike to commute, a class 3 bike would make much more sense for them. As far as eliminating mountain bikes, one guy talked about, no. Mountain bikes are some of the safest bikes. They have multiple speeds, they have better brakes. It's a more aggressive riding position, and generally younger riders prefer them, and to be honest, most of my customers are senior citizens, and they prefer more of the cruiser style bike where you sit upright. But I think to eliminate any randomly doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And now comes my first question. As a retailer, once someone is approved and they come to me to buy a bike, how do I get paid, and how long will it take?
We haven't gotten into, thanks for that question. We've been getting that. I've been getting that a lot on email. We haven't really figured that out yet, but it's definitely something that we've been discussing. ACH or check, or but I don't know how long it would take. And I think that would be, part of that application process that would inform you of all of those steps.
Okay. And I have one other thing I just wanted to talk about. I've heard a lot of self-serving comments requiring higher priced bikes, because, to be honest, many of the bikes that I sell would be free under your program. And I think that that's a good thing. And as far as the battery fires, et cetera, in lower priced bicycles, it's just not so. I service bikes of all levels, and I service batteries, and I take them apart and I repair them, and I see what every manufacturer offers virtually. And I can tell you that there is no difference in the fire risk of an expensive bike versus the battery fire risk in a less expensive bike. I believe that most of the battery fires are caused by consumers who have attempted to modify the bikes themselves, and that's what causes the fires.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bianca, we're gonna move on, but please keep your hands raised. We're gonna move on, and I just want to get through the slides so everyone has all of the information. And then we'll go back to taking questions and taking comments.
Okay.
Okay. So based on feedback and other successful e-bike incentive programs nationally and globally, staff is proposing a $1,000 base incentive for electric bicycles, an additional $750 for cargo bikes and adaptive or recumbent bikes, as well as an additional $250 for priority applicants. Now I'm going to reopen it up for questions and comments one more time before I move on to next steps.
Sounds good. Okay. Our next raised hand will be Eugene Dickey. Eugene, I've opened up your line.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so this is Eugene Dickey. I'm from Third Rail E-Bikes in San Francisco. And I have a couple of comments. One, I want to firmly support the requirement to have bicycles assembled. Like the previous participant, I've seen many customer assembled bikes that were not safe. Plus, when you go to the dealer, if you have questions about operation, safe operation of the bike, you can get them answered easily. You know, and some training usually goes along with that. There are services that connect online sellers with bike stores, such as Beeline, who I believe was a participant we heard from earlier in the call in the program. So, you know, it's not that big of a stretch for people to find assemblers. Also, one of the reasons I would really strongly recommend a lower limit on the price of a bike is just because the quality of the components really suffers when you get below a certain level. Batteries are not cheap. Motors cost something. And, you know, if you're putting all that stuff on a bike that, you know, would normally retail for $100 or even less, there's not much opportunity for quality, and there's going to be corner cutting in every step. Plus, most of those bikes, getting components to repair the bikes is very, very difficult. And if it's at all possible, I would recommend eliminating bikes that are sold either on Amazon, eBay, or Alibaba or AliExpress, just because it creates another step removed from the seller, which makes it much more difficult to get parts. And if there's a way of requiring manufacturers to have parts stocked in the US, that would be even better. Parts availability is a big issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eugene.
All right, thank you very much. Our next raised hand will be Stuart Kelman. Stuart, I've opened up your line.
Yeah, I have 3 questions. One of them, some of these bicycles that are out there are not eligible to be used on the buses because of the weight and the tire size. Will that be an issue?
Not that I'm aware of.
You know, in the front of the bus where you put your bicycle, that some of these electric bikes have 4-inch tires and they don't fit.
I'll be honest, that would be up to the consumer to make sure that their bikes, if they want to use public transit, their bikes will fit on those bike racks.
But they're going to be unaware.
I don't know what to, I'm sorry.
Okay, and what are we going to do about the toxic batteries? When do they have a plan for that?
We don't have a plan, and the scope of this program is to incentivize e-bikes. we're not able to control where each manufacturer sources their batteries, or anything
No, I'm
like that.
talking about the disposal of them after the fact.
That
Let me jump in really
sorry.
quick.
Thanks,
no, that's
Lisa.
okay. Hi, Lisa McCumber, branch chief over the branch for this program. So with regard to making sure that consumers have as much information as possible, we will do that. We will be building in education components about the bikes. And thanks for flagging wheel size and public transit. That's something we can note to the administrator to figure out how to build into our education components for consumers. Same thing with battery replacements or battery disposal at the end of life for the vehicles. We aren't charged with and won't be, as part of this program, managing that for them. But to the extent that we have information available, we'll be certain to pass it along to those that participate in the program.
Okay, besides the tire, also the weight of the bicycles, because some of them are over 70 pounds and that doesn't allow them to be on the buses either.
Yeah, and that's something that, we do hope to give information on to consumers, because e-bikes are heavy. And so we want them to recognize when they're purchasing a bike that it's not 20 pounds. It could very well be 70 or 80.
Right. And the final thought is we have disadvantaged neighborhoods, but there's poor people in rich neighborhoods and rich people in poor neighborhoods.
Yeah, and we hope to capture, with the priority criteria, we do hope to capture both, we do hope to capture people in richer neighborhoods by, making it a priority criteria that they have an income under 225% of the federal poverty limit. We're not just limiting it to location. We're also making sure that low income individuals are eligible for these incentives and have priority processing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Our next raised hand will be Ron Brazel. Ron, you can open up your line.
Okay, thank you. I forgot last time to mention my affiliation. I'm a board member of the Sacramento Area Bicycle Advocates, as well as a member on Sacramento's Active Transportation Commission. So I'm very active with advocacy. With the batteries, I don't know if you've looked into that, and the chargers and the safety of them. From what I've read, I think a lot of the problem is interchanging the batteries and chargers with different manufacturers. Maybe some of the other manufacturers that are on here can speak to that, but if there's any work being done on standardizing it to create one priority or protocol. I know I was working with a company called Swift Mile who does charging stations, and they're tried to standardize that. And I'm not sure exactly how far it went. And then secondly, just looking at the goals of the programs, probably I believe it is to reduce the vehicle miles traveled and not simply sell e-bikes. So again, the mountain bikes and fat tires, those would be good things to exclude from the program, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Okay, our next person in line will be James Tucker. James, I've opened up your line. You can unmute yourself when you're ready.
James, are you there?
Okay, James, I'm gonna get back to you after our next person, Eric Pierce. Eric, your line is open. Okay. I will try again for Eric Pierce and James Tucker in a moment. I'm going to go over to Ashley Garrity. Ashley, I've opened up your line.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ashley Garrity with the Green Lining Institute. I wanted to thank you for all of the work that CARB staff has been putting into this program. It's, I'm sure, a very heavy lift on your end. I wanted to also just voice my support for the alignment of income requirements with Clean Cars for All, as we want these programs to be as equitable as possible. Serving lower income individuals is something we very strongly support. We also are grateful for the increased incentive amount for disadvantaged and lower income recipients. And also that the incentive is given at the point of sale. This is very important and appreciate that part of the program. Thank you for making these changes and continuing to prioritize lower income individuals and disadvantaged community members as a way to make CARB programs more equity focused. As we know, because lower income communities continue to bear the brunt of poverty and pollution, and alternative mobility options such as e-bikes provide them and their communities with greater air quality benefits and more choice in how they get around in their communities. One thing to note is that the hybrid need-based approach for this program is a really great start, but in our opinion, doesn't quite deliver on need-based as practice. In order for it to be an objective need-based approach, we think that the program should target a specific population and a geographical area. And what we prioritize is, and hope that CARB will move towards in the future, is low income individuals or households below 225% of the federal poverty limit within a DAC, disadvantaged community census tract. So having people who are meeting both of those requirements. And this could happen through a setting aside funds that specifically is for those who meet both of these qualifications, or by a phased approach where for a period of time, the only applications that can be processed are those within that target audience, and then opening it up to those outside of disadvantaged communities. I know there was a little bit of a conversation earlier today about whether it would be a disadvantaged community zip code or a census tract. And we would like this program to prioritize low-income households in disadvantaged census tracts, because research has found that these are the individuals who are least likely to participate in programs such as these, yet are the ones who benefit the most. And most CARB programs are already at the zip code level. And from our research, we have yet to meaningfully impact low-income households in disadvantaged census tracts. And this is because being intentional and prioritizing low-income households in disadvantaged community census tracts, we can also avoid this program primarily funding recreation bikes, as I know that the intention of the program is to deprioritize recreation bikes and prioritize people who might use this as a commuter bike or really increase their mobility options. And this, these suggestions I'm making can help those who might need them to get to work or to school and be able to travel through their community with more options and cleaner vehicles. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. I'm going to give another opportunity to either James Tucker or Eric Pierce to chime in. No? Okay, I'm going to lower your guys' hands. Just raise your hand again if something changes. Okay. The next person would be, sorry. Darshan Davis. I've opened up your line.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I had a general comment and then I had a question, pretty generalized question. First of all, I know there's been a couple of commenters regarding the inclusion of Class 3 e-bikes. I just want to state my strong support of Class 3 e-bikes included. I'm glad you guys added that. Personally, where I feel the inverse of what the commenters were complaining about regarding class 3 maybe being too fast. I personally feel like where I live, class 1 and class 2 is a little bit too slow, because I personally live in an area where bike lane access is kind of here or there, and in the roads in which I bike at, I personally have ridden on the class 3 e-bike before, and in those moments in which I have ridden, I personally feel like keeping up with the cars in a 30 mile per hour, 35 mile per hour speed limited zone for cars in which you have to share the lane with a bike. I personally feel much safer keeping up at 25, 26, 27, 28 miles per hour versus a class 2 speed, which is going to be closer around 20. So that was more of a general comment that I had. My main question is, can you give me a sample walkthrough as a consumer of what it's going to be like for the process of getting this voucher if, say, we purchase from a brick and mortar store?
So I can't right now because we still don't have our application process ironed out, but please feel free to join future work groups where we will discuss that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, our next raised hand will be Sydney Tracton. Sydney, I've opened up your line.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thanks for having this and allowing us to get a little more educated on the process and what information you do currently have available. I'm not sure if you covered this. First of all, I'm an individual, so I'm not representing any companies. I'm just representing individuals such as myself. So I have, I think, 1 or 2 questions and 1 comment. The first question, and I might have missed it in the beginning, the approval process of the rebate. I couldn't tell if you said that someone would go into the shop and buy their bike and then they would wait to find out if they were approved or not. Is the approval process going to happen before or after you choose to make a purchase?
The approval process happens before. So you have to be approved. You have to apply and be approved before you can receive the incentive. So you
Okay,
cannot
so
buy a bike without, you will not get the incentive if you buy the bike before you are approved.
Okay. The second thing is for the, like everyone's been mentioning in reference to the class of bike, could it be possible to include in the program, maybe add something where there's a bike declaration, experience declaration that you state what your experience of riding a bike is, and then in that determination you qualify for a certain class, and this way people who haven't ridden in 20 years, they won't jump on the class 2 or class 3, or if they're 70 years old or older, you can make those determinations versus cutting something out completely from everyone. Maybe there's a process or way of doing that. So that was the second thing. And the other thing is in reference to the shops that will be available. I am concerned that if I purchase one and the shop, they might be in other states, and let's say they come here and they open a store, and they might be doing it now with the context of knowing that we're going into this program, that their leases be at least 2 to 5 years so that they have a strong commitment to the state and the communities they're in versus even a year or 18-month lease that they have to, they can pick up and leave. Because being able to, as everyone who has the bikes, and I don't, being able to find a reputable place, a place that you is credible, might be difficult if people are coming in and out, if they don't have like a strong investment in the community. So those are mine. I appreciate whatever information you can give me, and I thank you for my time.
Thank you for your comments and suggestions.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sydney. Our next speaker is Kathleen Powers. Kathleen, I've opened up your line. Kathleen, you'll need to unmute on your end as well.
Thank you. The button just appeared. I'm speaking as a community member. I live in a small rural area up in the Sierras. About 10 years ago, I purchased a bike online. And I was looking, what I found was what I was looking for. Here locally, there were non-existent bike shops. We couldn't find anything to go anywhere. So I ordered from a shop out of San Francisco, and it had some put together components for it. And I had just, I think was in my early 60s at the time. And I was a little nervous, and it was a pretty expensive bike for me. But when it came, I was so impressed because the put together components were something I did, and I had never worked on a bike. I had never I've never even changed a flat on a bike. So, but it came with the tools needed, a little set of tools, and I think I had to put on the seat, the pedals, maybe the handlebars. I don't remember exactly. It was very minimal, and I was able to do it. It just came right to my door. I opened the box and stood there and put it on. So I can reassure you now, it was not an e-bikes, and I understand that that's a little different. However, with the same sort of instructions and encouragement that I got when I ordered that bike, I'm not afraid of doing that on my own. We have one bike shop left here where I live. It is strictly mountain biking. We are a huge mountain biking town, but our community is starting to move forward with a lot of bike trails or bike paths in downtown area. So we have an aging population, and that's where I'm looking at. And I'm interested in, they mentioned cargo bikes, but I'm not sure exactly the types of bikes. So if I've missed those photos, or just, I read some descriptions, but they weren't that clear. So I'd like to see maybe some samples of what you're referring to. I put my name in to be able to apply to the program when that opens. So I'm really interested in it. But the bike I required that I bought out of San Francisco, which is about 4 to 5 hours away, it did require at some point, if you wanted to have it tuned up, I would have had to taken it into the city that far away, or there was a dealer a little closer that I could drive to. That was an hour and a half, and it was a reputable in a college town. It had a big bike shop, and I was able to get to that shop to have them tune it up like the following year, and when anything I needed. Now I don't know that I would make that drive. I would like to see something local. I like someone's idea of the where you drive around and fix bikes or do little tune-ups. Though I think that's a great incentive, and it may be another grant that could be written for somebody to, for a job, because I think there's a huge market for this. At the time I bought my bike 10 years ago, the company I bought from in San Francisco, they had a huge business in e-bikes, and I had never seen one. And when I saw that, I thought, that's what I wanted. I wanted an e-bike. I would have been able to commute to my job when I was working. I'm retired, because there are a couple of hills that I just knew I didn't want to deal with. So I couldn't even afford the e-bike back then either. So I'm real excited when I saw the program, your program. I think I qualify in some way, shape, or form. But again, somebody brought up about why buy online with all these shops. I don't have a shop, and it was an hour and a half to go look for things, and they didn't have what I wanted, but I found what I wanted online. I had no qualms about it, and they contracted with the other bike company an hour and a half away. Hopefully they'll get something a little closer, because bikes are becoming even a bigger thing here for us. And as far as batteries catching on fire, in all honesty, I've read far more about phone batteries or car batteries or other electrical appliances catching on fire. I don't see this as being, from a reputable company, I don't see this as being any more of a concern. I think we all take some chance in our daily life. But I just really wanted to emphasize about the put together myself. I was very, very happy with how they boxed it and how I got it, and the ability to follow those directions. So it can be done. And that was all, but thanks. I'm looking forward to the program.
Thanks, Kathleen. And please feel free to reach out to me. I can walk you through what a cargo bike is at a later time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Just an update, we have 7 more hands we're getting through. But our next person is Jonathan Paris. Jonathan, I've opened up your line.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Hey, so I just want to start by saying thank you to you guys. This is a massive undertaking, and I'd well beyond what I would be willing to handle myself. So super grateful to you guys for all the work that you're doing, and I think it's important to recognize that right off the bat. I think that there's a really simple way of addressing a lot of the issues that have come up that are all valid. A singular feature that can really hit a lot of these issues that you guys have brought up, and that's hydraulic disc brakes. The implementation of hydraulic disc brakes by itself will dramatically increase the safety of these bikes. It also reduces the amount of repairs that need to be done and the window in which they need to be done. You don't have cable stretching. You've got much more powerful braking. That will also address some of the quality concerns that you have. Manufacturers, just due to cost, aren't putting hydraulic disc brakes on super cheap bikes because it's cost prohibitive. So by implementing that requirement that the bikes that are being sold through this program have hydraulic disc brakes, I think you address some of the quality concerns. As far as the class 3 concerns that have been shared, it kind of surprises me how much concern there is here, because as a retailer, I accept that it's our job to qualify the customer. When they come in looking for these bikes, we are supposed to be spending the time with them to ensure that they understand the risks, that they get some time on the bike and they get to try it, that they understand how fast these things can go. And pretty consistently, at least here, we have found that if it's an appropriate bike, they buy it. If it's something else better fits their needs, including something that can't go quite as fast, we simply find that option for them. That's also another reason why I think, in my opinion, this should really be restricted to brick and mortar stores. Another reason is the assembly of the bikes. You know, I think that there should be a requirement and specific language that requires that these bikes are built by a mechanic. It's not really a question of whether it can be done or not. I mean, we've obviously seen that the direct-to-consumer model works, and these bikes can be sent to people's homes, and that yes, they can be assembled. But we're talking about a very specific grouping of bikes, maybe 3,000 bikes. And I don't think the question is whether it can be done. It's simply that it doesn't need to be done that way. There is the option to add a layer of safety for these bikes that we're delivering specifically to needy communities. And if we had the option to add that requirement to make these bikes safer by the time that they hit the consumer, then we should do that. I think we have a responsibility to do that. And I think a very easy way of doing that is requiring specific language that a mechanic is building these bikes. And that includes if you guys decide to, you know, have the direct-to-consumer brands participate, they should be required to contract to the mobile shops, and they have to figure it out. It's that simple. This is a pool of 3,000 bikes. If you want to participate, you should have to figure that out. And then as far as the mountain bike thing, you know, I tend to agree that mountain bikes should be included. What I would specifically not include is full suspension mountain bikes. And the only reason that I say that is because of all of the different pivot points that these bikes have. It just complicates maintenance for the consumer in a way that they may not understand when they're initially shopping for these bikes. But a hardtail e-mountain bike, I don't see how it's dramatically different from a hybrid. If anything, a lot of these e-bikes are coming with one-bike systems, which require less maintenance. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next person in line will be Laura McCamey. Laura, I've opened up your line.
Hey, Laura McCamey from CalBike. Thank you so much for this meeting. I have a couple of questions, but I also wanted to respond to something that came up earlier and just say that we are one of the advocacy organizations that's really trying to get the word out. And if you go to calbike.org/ebikes, you'll find we try to keep that updated with information and FAQs about the program. And we're also gathering information about other e-bike incentive programs, which there are more and more of around California. So if you can't wait for this program, there's other options. And I wanted to ask, this is really in the weeds, but the idea of a price floor of 800 or price floor of 800, that would leave some extra money in the base incentive. Would participants be able to put that towards sales tax, or would they have to pay the sales tax themselves?
This is a great question. Thank you. So we are, the incentive can be used for sales tax effectively. So what we're saying is that if your bike is, yeah, $800 and sales tax is another $100, you've only paid $900, you won't get that extra $100 back to you, but the entire cost of the e-bike will be covered.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about is the definition of adaptive bike. I know this is something that's come up before. I would just want to say that I'm hearing that here, and we have heard this at CalBike a lot, that I think seniors and people with disabilities are a major contingency for this incentive, that it's going to really be helpful to them. And it would be great, because I think there's a lot of questions like, can I get a trike? You know, can the adaptive bike that I'm looking at qualify? Like, the sooner that question gets some clarification would be helpful. And I could see a range from, I know in the Bay Area, there's something called BORP that builds adaptive bikes for people with disabilities custom. Would that be included? Would it just be off the shelf adapt? So I think there's some questions out there around adaptive bikes that would be great to answer.
Yeah, thanks again. So we are leaving the definition of adaptive bike broad simply for that, right? We want to make sure that no one is left behind, especially those with physical disabilities and our aging population. So we're leaving that term really broad. And I would expect that as we continue to develop this program and continue to solidify some of the parameters, that we won't necessarily narrow that definition, but provide more guidance on how people can redeem or purchase adaptive bikes through this program.
Great. And I want to suggest that groups like BORP around the state that build adaptive bikes, they might not be selling a brand of bike, they might be customizing bikes, but that they be allowed to apply to become a retailer, so that the incentive could be put toward the purchase of one of the bikes that they build. I see people around the Bay Area, who around my area, who may have a prosthetic leg or something, who have had or a special bike where they can pedal with their hands. It's very cool, and it would be great to put some of the money toward those bikes if possible.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, our next person in line would be Jose Jimenez. Jose, I've opened up your line.
Good morning, all.
Good
Jose
morning.
Jimenez from Active San Gabriel Valley and the GoSGV e-bike regional share program. Actually, I think Lisa touched on this as far as my question is there any more information about the educational piece? Mostly, as we seen this program start up, education was one of the things that was a big concern for us. And I think it addresses a lot of the concerns that people are having and questions regarding safety, class 1, class 2, class 3. So is there any more information as far as where we're at with the educational piece of this?
Not yet. It is something that we will bring forward soon, but not yet. And part of the reason we're not talking about it at this work group, and it is something that we did actually want to discuss, is that it takes, and this is for everyone to know, it takes, when we announce a work group, it takes about a month to get the slides finalized and go through the translation process. So we're not really able to make last minute changes the way, that we could in other programs. In terms of the work group and what we're presenting. So know that this is something that we are thinking about, and it is something that we'll bring forward soon. It's just this, this information and this PowerPoint was nailed down at the end of December.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Helene Rubinoff. Helene, I've opened up. Oh, there you are.
I love what you guys are doing. I am a consumer, an active senior, and an activist with the North County Climate Change Alliance here in San Diego. I'm interested in knowing the role that used bike will play in this program. If I could find a bike, for example, by a legitimate merchant with 1-year guarantee and a facility to repair, would a bike like that qualify? Because if it does, I can get a higher quality bike with price range that you're offering. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. No, used e-bikes will not qualify in this program. At least not right now.
Okay. So, okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, we only have 3 more speakers, and these are all folks that have spoke before, but I'm going to open up the line for Ruben Ponce. Ruben?
Yeah, sorry, I just had one more question follow up from the previous one. So I assume that the applications for the dealers to apply as well is not available yet either.
Correct.
Okay, and then based on like you explained before, that'll be made available through the resources where we found this form as well.
Correct.
Awesome, thank you, that was it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, next up, we have Ron Brazel. Ron, I've unmuted your mic.
Hey, thank you. Just one more follow-up on the assembly. I imagine that's going to be part of the cost to get, I mean, so it will affect the budget that I'll be working with, or individual will be working with to purchase a bike. I mean, if they can only, I mean, if they have a certain budget that they're beyond the incentive, like I say, by requiring that it be assembled by a manufacturer, I don't know, have really no idea what that would cost, maybe $100 or so, but that would affect possibly the quality of the bike that I would get.
I'm not sure I understand your question, but what we are proposing is that the bike is assembled at the cost of the retailer or manufacturer, in particular for in terms of at the cost of the manufacturer for direct to consumer sales.
Right. So the reseller is going to have to add some cost onto the price of the bike to have it assembled, opposed to delivering it boxed or with the having the consumer assemble it.
They will not be able to pass. They cannot have an extra charge to assemble the bike for the consumer through this program.
They will not be able to pass on the cost, but it seems they would have to pass on the price of assembly, because that will be a cost that they're going to have to or forced to incur if it's required, opposed to being an option.
I'm not sure, but I think we're about to get really in the weeds on this. So if this is something that we can take offline, that would be really great.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm back, guys. My internet connection went out for a moment, but Helen, I'm opening up your line.
If this is for Helene, I've already spoken.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. In that case, we have one more raised hand. Saul Lycan, you can unmute yourself when you're ready.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to offer 2 comments. One about the battery safety stuff, which I think is critically important, but it's mostly around the timing. A number of manufacturers who meet the UL requirements are in line to get officially certified by UL. and it probably won't happen for a majority of manufacturers by Q2 of 2023, which I believe is when the goal for the program to go live. So I just want to, like, while I again think that that's really important, I want to make sure that we don't accidentally make a bunch of bikes ineligible for the program purely based on the timing. So just look into that. We can talk more offline. I can provide some more information there. But someone earlier said it was very easy to get UL batteries right now. That's not the case at the moment. There's very few vendors who offer that. There will be more in the future, but we just got to align the timing. And then the other one I want to say was related to the last comment I just heard about the assembly thing. I just want to be super clear. I heard earlier that the goal is to make it so the online vendor, or sorry, so that the local retailers are not disadvantaged compared to the online vendors. That's why you wanted to do the assembly requirement. I just want to say, if you make the assembly a requirement, then you're actually disadvantaging the online folks compared to the local retailers. Because when a local retailer sells a bike, you know, some of the margin they earn from the supplier goes directly towards the assembly. So they're getting compensated for that assembly. The way you have it written now for the online folks, they're not getting any compensation for that assembly. You're forcing them to take it out of their own pocket. And so that puts them at a disadvantage compared to the local retailers. And I doubt that's the goal. I think you want it to be equal for everybody. So just calling that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, looks like we have a couple more raised hands. It says 4 for me, but our next speaker will be Janice Cimbalo.
Hi there. I wound up coming into the session a little bit late, and I wondered if the recording is going to be available for us to listen to at a later time.
Yeah, Janice, we aim to have a video of the recording posted within 2 weeks of the work group.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Janice. Lucinda Young, I've unmuted your line.
Yes, just a quick question. The income requirement will, how is income going to be defined? Is it going to be federal gross income as reported on our 2022 income tax returns? Is it federal adjusted gross income? If you could clarify if there has been a definition worked out yet. And will applicants be required to supply their copy of their federal tax income to validate that amount? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lucinda. So it will be based on gross income, not adjusted. It will be based on annual gross income. And as for the income verification process, we haven't, that hasn't really been decided yet, but I expect that you'll either be asked to supply a copy of your tax return or sign a form giving the grantee permission to retrieve your tax return.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The last raised hand is Johnny Watanabe. Johnny, I've opened up your line.
Hi. My question is for the qualification. Will you consider people with disability like Down syndromes, autism as one of the top priority community?
No, that is not something that we have discussed considering, but it is something I can bring back and see what and see if that's something that we can discuss.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's all the raised hands I can see on my end, Aria.
It looks like we do have one last raised hand from Jonathan Bradbury. Jonathan, I've unmuted your mic.
Yes. I just had 2 questions. One is, would it be possible if maybe we could have like a guideline of like good questions to ask when searching to buy a e-bike for the first time? And also, I was told that by Social Security, so I get Social Security, that I don't have to fill out tax forms anymore how can I prove, like I think you just said that, how do I prove how much I make, to qualify for the program?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I expect that those, things you should be looking for will be covered in the safety and education portion of the program. And then as for your specific income verification question, for our other programs, there are plenty of people who only collect Social Security and don't file taxes, and there are other mechanisms that we use to verify their income. So even if you don't file taxes, it does not disqualify you from participating in this program.
Awesome. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Keep
you.
it up.
Thanks.
All right.
We have one last raised hand from Cindy Tracton. Sydney, I have unmuted your mic. Cindy, you'll need to unmute on your end.
I am unmuting. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. For the $1,000 bike, while the tax is included, let's say somebody gets an $800 bike, while the tax is included in the program, so let's say it's $900, will helmets be allowed to be included as well if you are, don't reach that $1,000 limit? And B, will helmets be required of participants? Because I think a lot of safety issues deal with people injuring head injuries that don't wear helmets. In this program, is that a requirement? Thanks for your time.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Cindy.
it.
I don't know about using the excess money for a helmet or other safety gear. That's something that we'll definitely discuss. And then as for wearing a helmet requirement, I would hope that everyone wears their helmet while biking. But I don't know. I don't know as of right now if we plan on making that a requirement to continue to participate in the program.
Okay, even with class 3 bikes with the speeds and all?
I believe that class 3 bikes have its own set of legal limitations that may require helmet use. But I don't know that for sure. But yeah, class 3 definitely has different legal limitations than class 1s or 2.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Moving on to next steps. We'll hold another work group later in Q1 to discuss program launch and finalize any details. Finally, we'll continue to work with the grantee to develop the application platform. Definitely keep an eye out for the GovDelivery notice of the next work group. Please feel free to contact myself or Lisa. Our emails are on the slide, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our listserv. All GovDelivery announcements for this project go out using that listserv. Thank you for joining, and we look forward to talking with you soon.